So, to put it simply, I want to make an anti-air cannon, or an anti-air, vehicle. I haven't done much stuff like this in a long time, and I would like to do it, now. So, let's just set some rules before we actually start, since... So, let's start. I'll probably also have to move as well. So, first I'm actually going to start with prototyping a cannon. Now, this is basically just going to use spud guns, which is just going to fire explosives, which is pretty simple. So it'll just fire at cardboard, which will propel an explosive forward, which is just a simple design. So I'm adding lots of spud guns because the way this thing is going to have ammo is going to be a bit weird. Or, the reloading system will be a bit weird. So I basically made it so obviously it will just shoot the cardboard, and it does this right, so it fires the explosive very very far. But then we can actually do one better because it's going so fast it can go through walls, which is basically going to be pretty useful because instead of keeping ammo off to the side, we just keep it right in front of the actual of ammo. So that as you can see now, if we fire the first one, it'll probably won't explode. As you can see, it didn't explode, and this is going to be pretty useful for adding ammo. Of course, we're not going to completely do this since we are going to need quite a bit of ammo to fire quick, but it's a step in the right direction. But now we're going to put making the cannon on hold, since we're actually going to, build the vehicle that's going to house this thing. Now, the vehicle isn't exactly necessary. It's more that I would rather this thing be able to move around, since it's kind of annoying if you can't move around and have to move it with the lift. So obviously this thing isn't going to be stationary, it's just going to be basically a big wheeled platform with a small interior. Now it's going to be angled at each end because it makes it kind of look cool, and also probably does something else in the real world, but I just think it looks pretty cool. Now this thing isn't going to be massive, but it's going to be relatively big, so it can actually fit the cannon. So it's probably going to be quite big. So now I'm just adding some windows at the front. Now this is where you actually control it from. Now it does look a bit odd right now, but it'll probably look better when we actually add wheels, and it doesn't just look like a slug. So as you can see, the interior is a bit bland at the moment, but we just need to make this thing move. So I added wheels since they're pretty useful to make stuff move. And there's going to be quite a few of them, but not too much because I don't want this thing to be too laggy, because I quite don't really like when things are laggy. And now this thing looks okay. I also added a side armor to protect the wheels, although it would absolutely do nothing. It's there for, to be there. But you might notice that, nothing works right now, so we probably need to actually do some work on the inside. So I made a doorway first, since that's going to be pretty useful for getting in. So then I decided actually to make this thing move. Now this thing is going to use tank drives, and this is the easiest, but it won't be your average tank drive. I use a few logic gates to make it a bit different. So I basically just steal these logic gates from my crossbow tank because I really like how the tank drive works. Instead of just being one button for each side, there's 3 buttons, which is one to go forwards, and the 2 others are to turn left and right. It has the whole point of logic is so that even if you press forward and go right, you will just go right instead of going forwards. It's not too complicated, but I just had to copy it from this one since I can hardly remember how to make it. So yeah, this will basically make it so it's a lot easier for me to drive, and also I can't really be able to make it so it's WASD, so it'll have to do its job. No, this isn't too hard to make. It does require a bit of logic, and it's all just a bit muddled up, but now it does work. Now, as you can see, we go quite fast and even drift a bit. The main problem is that all the wheels aren't always touching the ground at once, but that's just something we'll have to deal with. But it does go pretty fast, but also turning might be a problem, but I can't really do much about it. So yeah, this thing's actually doing pretty well. So let's work on the cannon. So this is basically just going to be like the prototype made at the start of the video. So it's a lot more compact because space is kind of important when you're making stuff like this. So you'll have to do. And as you can see, it works. Now there is lots of recoil, which is probably going to be quite noticeable when you actually put this on a cannon. Although the cannon probably will weigh a lot more than, well, what this weighs. But it probably won't help either. Now there are a few problems with this design, like only having 5 ammo, but I can easily solve this later, so it'll have to do for now. So now I still want to see if I can fire it up, since it's going to be quite important. And as you can see, we can't. Now I'm just going to hope this doesn't happen when I actually mount it to the cannon, since I can't do much to solve it at the moment. But anyway, I solved the problem of not having much ammo by making it so like adding 4 times more ammo, so when you use up like one set of 5 ammo, it'll just reload another one in. Now the main problem is that it does take a long time to get another set of 5 ammo back in, but it was the only really good system that I have, so we're gonna have to stick with it. So yeah, there are a few flaws of this system, but it actually works okay. Now the problem with what happened here is that I've added a loop, which basically means that it'll fire automatically very quick, and hopefully it actually works. Now you will see a very obvious decrease in like fire rate of course on it. So it's just do a new one, which is kind of no problem. But this just fires really quickly. So yeah, it's definitely pretty good. So yeah, this thing's actually doing pretty well. We can basically make it fire as fast as we want. Of course, it fires kind of volleys, which is a bad thing. But we'll have to deal with it since there's not much we can do. So I welded it onto the big car thing. Don't know what to call it, and to see if it works. Now I basically I'm making it so you can actually aim it, which is kind of useful. And now we can actually aim it up and down. Of course, we can't turn it to side yet, which is a problem, but we can easily solve that. It also isn't exactly balanced, but it is what it is, and sometimes it does just start to lean back, but we'll have to deal with it. As you can see, it fires pretty quickly and actually works on this. The only problem is that it got caught on the seat, which is bad, but we'll just move the seat. It's not that hard. So I moved the seat then, which was pretty simple. Then I added a barrel. I won't actually do anything. It makes it look, kind of look a bit more realistic, although not really. But it's there to yeah, just exist. Now now this thing actually is pretty good, and you can actually destroy quite a lot of things. For example, I just destroyed this plane, and now it no longer has a wing. Although realistically, even if I got like one hit on this plane, it'd probably be dead. Now, now this thing actually does fire really well, and it's actually done better than I expected. Since when I was actually planning to make this, I didn't know I'd do it like this. So now I'm actually working on the interior, since it's kind of ugly in here, since there's nothing in here, except a few logic gates, which shouldn't really be there. But now I'm just putting them in the walls. Now, I thought on one side of the room I had like a radar thing, and the other side like a radio thing. Here's the radio thing. It is what it is, so I'm keeping it there. So then I tried to work on like the actual top of the thing, where there's gonna be a radio mast, and also eventually I did add like a radar thing, which was also pretty cool. I also added an exhaust in the back since it's kind of important, but I actually worked on the radar thing. And this is basically just like hooking up like those logic gates, which was pretty easy, but now it works. It might be a bit fast, but I easily can change the timer, so I think it looks pretty good and it's a pretty good addition. And as you can see, this thing's actually pretty good. I'm just colouring it, painting some of the things that should be grey, since it looks quite a lot better. But another thing actually works. The problem is you can't actually aim very good with the X since there's no like sight. So I added a sight. Now this was going to be pretty simple. It was just going to use the screw blocks and also like a few other pipes. It worked out pretty well in the end. As you can see, this wasn't really good enough, so I had to actually put a screw on top, which would be a lot better in the end. You'll see. As I added the screw, now this has like a little notch in it which you can see through, which is actually pretty good. And now we can actually aim pretty well. As you see, I was aiming for the tree, and I actually hit it. Now this thing is very accurate, which could be a problem, since if you always shoot when you're aiming, if you're not aiming at the plane, then you're not going to hit it. But as you can see, we completely demolished the tree, which is pretty good. But this thing's actually pretty mobile as well. It can like go around quite well and can drive pretty well as well. Now this thing does not have a reverse, so it's a bit of a pain to go up hills. And yeah, you basically can't go up hills. You've got to use a lift, which is a bit of a pain. And the problem is all the wheels don't touch the ground, and this thing's pretty heavy, so it can't really go over much bumps because there's just not enough traction, and it'll just not do much. It can hardly go off a cliff, so yeah, that kind of explains it. Over flat ground, though, it's actually pretty good and pretty easy to drive. But how good is this thing? So I've got my blimp hovering over there, and let's just see how much damage we can do. Now I'm going to clarify, there are some more explosives already in the blimp from when I filmed a video with it. So yeah, but as you can see, we pretty much destroyed the blimp. Now the radar like thing on top of the actual vehicle isn't very useful, but we did lots of damage. As you can see, this blimp is probably not going to fly anymore. So yeah. So now I'm doing damage against this castle. Now there actually is a big problem where the explosives will go through the walls, so it doesn't seem like we're doing much damage, mostly because the damage we're actually doing is actually behind what we're seeing. So we're damaging things we can't even see, which is pretty insane. But from further away, it's a lot less noticeable because obviously the explosives slow down, which means that you actually do more damage. As you can see, we did quite a lot of damage, but lots of the damage was literally in some places that we can't even see or aim, so did a pretty good job. As you can see, most of it's on the back wall, which basically shows how fast the explosives are going, which is pretty cool. But anyway, let's try this against something a bit bigger, like this battleship here. So yeah, now it is a big problem with actual collisions that explosives don't actually explode. But as you can see, you can do decent damage. Now one of the main problems is that explosives you can't aim down, otherwise they'll carry on going forwards, which is a big problem since obviously you need to aim down to the bottom of the battleship, so it actually stinks. But anyway, so this thing's actually pretty good, and I actually had quite a lot of fun making it, since like it's quite an old thing I used to do is make lots of things that explode other things, and it's quite fun since I haven't made anything like it for a long time. I also did implement a few new mechanics which I just learned, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and bye.